the Singapore real estate market. As you have already known that we are facing an unprecedented crisis, and you may have just wondered what had happened with the last 2 months of lockdown and what will be happening in the future. So I will also be sharing about some of the fundamentals that we should not be forgot in a property market today. So let's go. Okay, before I begin, there is a disclaimer that this is not a buy, sell, rent recommendations, and you have to do your own due diligence or to seek professional advice. Of course, on the 12th of March 2020, WHO declared that we are facing a coronavirus pandemic today. And of course, it leads also to oil market crashes that have been ever low since 21-year low ever. And of course, the stock market, you have seen, especially in March period, that it just have dived deep down to 30, even 40%. So for COVID-19 crisis, what are your thoughts? What are your feelings towards it? And of course, for the property real estate in Singapore, if you look at the Singapore property price index, you know that actually from the number of years, you will show a gradual increase trending up for this. So from right now, as we have faced a crisis of coronavirus, do you think that the market will be moving up, stay neutral, or will it be just moving down? So what are your thoughts right now? Of course, within these 2 months, Singapore faced lockdown. What I can say is that it is actually we are facing a recession. And it's not only that because we are facing artificial recessions. What do I mean by artificial recessions? Okay, because all these are government interventions and measures to stop people from operating business, to stop people from going to office to work. And of course, the whole world is preventing people from traveling to all, and there's no border travels anymore. So with this all actions, what I can say is that these are all being human interventions to suppress from us operating business. So that and hence it creates an artificial recession. And of course, one thing that we need to ask ourselves is that whether is this leading like a disaster? Was it something that is being natural or something economic? Bear in mind that in 2008 and 2009, we do face a crisis in terms of economic, whereas there's a mortgage crisis where people default on the loans and banks that is the bank's value in terms of their stringent and controls was not in place. And that times the prices have dived deep down as well. So right now, what I can say is that we're actually facing a more natural disasters because coronavirus, of course, is something that we cannot control. And then a lot of the whole world governments, even WHO, are coming in to force people to not socialize outside, to prevent people to not operate business. So, and we can see from this article, the former Fed chairman Ben Bernanke actually sees that there's very sharp recession followed by a very quick rebound. So what he's saying that he predicted that it might be a V-shaped recovery. But of course, today we will not be able to talk about whether it will be a V-shape or will it be U-shaped, but what has happened and what is currently happening now. Of course, in every of the crisis that we term, we do see some of the opportunities, but some people may see this window open and some people may see these windows closed. So for you, what would you able to see? And of course, the very first one that I want to point out is because of the crisis that is happening, we are actually experience very low interest rate. So if you see that this graph actually shows the rates of the SIBOR and the SOR that Singapore's packages were at. So you see that there's a dive deep in between the SIBOR and the SOR rate, which is also good for us because when we buy property, of course, we get a loan, and this loan is pegged to this very low interest rate. So, and this SIBOR dive triggers fresh battle in mortgage rate cuts. And of course, another good point that because of this coronavirus, in a way, individuals can actually, the banks allow us to get deferment or property loan, which includes the principal and interest. So in cases of the homestay or in cases of people invest where they were saying that they are not able to get some tenants fast, so they have the choice and the options to see whether they want to defer the property loan. And also there's insurance premium payments also you can defer. And for the SME sites, the government is actually pumping in money to support them to continuing to pay their staff so that within these 2 months that they are out of the business in a way, they can still survive because the staff, they are still paying a lot of rent and they are still paying the staff uh, salary. And in the past that we have seen in 2008, like I highlighted just now, was that the banks nearly took down the economy. So uh, in right now, we are not really an economic triggered point of view because previously in 2008 is a bit different whereby the banks was involved in terms of the controls was not there and a lot of rulings were ends actually starts to comes into place because I used to work in banks, so I know that at that time they have loose controls and they start to set in regulations to regulate the whole banking industries. So right now, the banks, you can see that there are banks that's helping in individuals and SMEs and companies to hope to that they can actually survive during this crisis as well. And of course, window of opportunity number two, quantitative easing. So right now we have seen that the US is really printing a lot of money to support and they are giving trillions of money to its citizens to allow them to survive during this period. And of course, in Singapore, our government is actually pumping a lot of budgets for individuals, budgets for companies, for SME, just so that they can actually survive right now. So they're just pumping in a lot of money from the reserve that we have. So I would say in this QE, there's actually more of a transfer of money flowing around, much more than ever, because they are printing in more money and also they are allowing the money to flow in the economy, in the market right now. So I'm going to share with you also what is the relationship that why I'm talking about the low interest rate and why do I talk about the quantitative easing. So there is a relationship between these two, and from the history of the past, in terms of the property, there is also a relationship. So from the graph that you can see here, the green actually represents the Singapore Private Property Price Index, which is this one. And the interest rate, we take it as 3-month SIBOR as a gauge. So this is the interest rate. So you can see that in terms of crisis, that what had happened before is in 2003 SARS happened, and 2008 the global financial crisis, and even H1N1 actually stepped in also. So so you see that the property price index and the interest rate actually has a divergent relationship. That means their relationship is actually inversely proportional. So in terms of here, we in 2008, it started where we have a QE also. So we have a QE 1, 2, 3. So where the government starts to pump in a lot of money to the economy, to the individuals, to the market. So it leads to a dive deep down into the 3-month cycle. And of course, the property price index as a result because of the low interest rate, because of a lot of money that is starting to flow in the economy, people actually uses the money to invest in property. So you can see from here there's an inversely proportional and there's a divergence out from this. So in terms of the COVID-19, so you can see the same thing that we have a QE4 that is happening right now. We will not be able to know when it ending because I think the government is still giving a lot of money to support as we go to see how the situation is. So there is actually a dive deep the decreasing trends in terms of the 3-month SIBOR, and what would actually be happening to the property price index from there. Okay, let me just zoom in the what was happening in the QE 1 to 3 that's happening into 2008 to 2009. So this is the subprime crisis, the mortgage crisis that happens. So and the US government started to pump in money through in the market of this. So and it leads to the property price index that surged up to 52%, 62%, and these are the money that is being pumped into the economy and the market. So much so that actually right now, because of the money that is flowing out, the property prices start to increase. And in Singapore, this was the time where the government stepped in to say that, hey, we are not wanting to have a bubble, a Singapore bubble from happening, because the prices just surged out so high that they started to step in 2013. Actually, they started in about 2011 already by introducing like ABSD, but and seller stamp duty. But at that moment, it doesn't seem to have much impact, because you can see even though they started with some cooling measures, the prices still rises sharply from there, and then they have to step in with this TDSR that in 2013 that totally disrupt the Singapore real estate such that it stabilized itself much more to a better state. So, and then of course we have a cooling measures, which is happening in the 2018 as well. And so what will be happening next from there? Uh, so we hope, of course, the cooling measures that the government has taken place, if you see from this graph itself, is that it helps to stabilize the prices more to a better, so that it doesn't surge in such a way that even our family we're thinking of getting properties for our kids, it doesn't rise so much that we are so worried our next generations, how could they actually afford for the next housing. So in terms of that, I think this is actually a good point that our government has taken in place for the cooling measures. And of course, from a research that is done by my company, they when they actually zoom in of what exactly happens um, during the subprime crisis, the global financial crisis, where they pump in the QE1, QE2, and QE3, they actually shows the differences in terms of the what are the gains percentage between the investment tools. So in terms of stocks, all actually increases in terms of gold prices. So and of course they treat some index that measures against the stocks as well. The property price actually has the highest gain in terms of 31.6% between these two in this of 5 years periods. Okay, so when you think that when money is being freely printed digitally or given by the government, so ask yourself, is cash still the king? Because we always say that cash is king, which is true. Because right now, I think when people are worried about the jobs, when people are worried about business, and they start to wonder, of course, I know that probably some of y'all may have a lot of holding powers, which is very good. So that in terms of the cash that is on hand, is now cash the king. Because when there are much more money supplying to the market, what would be the value of the cash right now when there's so much cash out there? And normally when there is cash, where would it usually flow to? So this is some of the questions that you might have to ask yourself. And also, do you still believe in the future of Singapore real estate? So I know that at some moment our government has really made some mistakes in terms of allowing our foreign workers to splurge in terms of the coronavirus numbers happening cases in Singapore. But look at around you. Do you feel that do you feel like you not safe being in Singapore, or do you feel that oh, things still go all right, so and things still go good and I still have a job? So what have your thoughts about the Singapore market? Is that we know that some of the restaurants that is closing down, some business may unfortunately be closing down, but do you feel that where the properties that we hold, as our government is going to prevent them from going really, really down, or is at least we can still maintain the value of our properties. So for you to think about what happens right now, and then in terms of future, do you still believe in the future of Singapore? So these are some of the questions that you might want to ask yourself. But of course, we'll have be sharing another topic about the future trends of the future markets also. So let us look at what exactly happens within these 2 months. HDB resale volume dips actually to a 30-year low because I think when the lockdown happened, it happened so fast that people wasn't really ready about what is going to do. So between that state is that people are still in a limbo state. Is that I've got to work from home and my kids are not going to school. So what am I going to happen? And how do I cope with working from home? So that was a period whereby people were just stuck in between and they do not know what to do with their lives. Suddenly they are not supposed to go out. So in terms of property, same thing whereby people are not going to go out there to view the house, and then everybody was told to adjust to actually virtual viewings. And at this moment, it was like people probably might like, wow, what is virtual viewings? And I have to do Zoom meetings, etc. So people were still getting used to the new normal. So at that moment, within these two periods, it's understandable that the volume actually dips. So, but it's actually good to know that in actual transactions, the prices still hold up. And of course, another articles that says that condos actually hold steady in terms of the prices despite the volume dive as well. And then when we are closing to the out of lockdown period, um, there's actually more home buyers that's willing to sign a dotted line in May. Also because within these 2 months, the developers are giving discounts, and people are not putting out a lot to sell, or not waiting to buy, or waiting just on the market. So some of the people actually take advantage of the discounts, and there are not a lot of buyers and sellers out there, so they take advantage of that. And also because of the low interest rate, and also they have the holding power, so they decide to actually sign on the dotted line to get a property. Okay, so right now we are actually out of the lockdown. Maybe you have seen that people have been out in the streets. So the consumer behavior is very interesting to actually notice about the consumer behavior in the whole world. Whereas in China, when we look back, which day happened, their reopening happened in March. The housing market was just crazy, where people seems to be like just buying than never before. So the volume actually surpassed the average level last year, and so long when they open up, people just start coming back again. So, and this is also what we call as revenge spending. Suddenly, when people are locked down, when they got freedom, they suddenly say that, wow, I want to probably go and buy properties. I want to go view properties. Of course, we have yet to see that impact on the Singapore yet. So probably maybe this few days, we can actually roughly see on the street, on the market. I think we will be able to know what's happening. Will it be the same as in China, or uh, will it be the same, in Singapore as well? So just look at your surroundings, look at your consumer behavior. So, and what would be our reactions for SARS periods, of course, where that were that the property volumes actually dive deep down. So, and of course, it immediately quite increases out to there, have a recovery, leading to a recovery. So I would also like to point that in terms of the where the money flows, I think it's also good that we look at how the world sees us in terms of Singapore. How do they actually really view us? So I actually managed to actually find these articles that one of the best countries, or in terms of top best countries to invest in post-COVID, they actually announced that Singapore still remain as the best nations to invest and also to do business in. So, and of course, in terms of the wealthy from the world, they continue to pick up choice sets in the April in Singapore itself. So glad to know and glad to see this news as well, because it also means that our property can remain a value in Singapore. And of course, Singapore retains top spots as the world's most competitive economy. So I actually probably share a little bit about because I traveled a lot last year actually, and then and in terms of the reputations from Singapore that I heard from American friends, I heard from European friends, I heard from China friends, and of course Malaysia neighbor country, they actually have a very good image of Singapore. Like when I travel, people a lot like, wow, Singapore is a very nice place. And when they come to Singapore to travel, they say that, oh, Singapore is so clean, has very good reputations, and people are so nice, very knowledgeable, very intelligent, and very highly educated. So, and in terms of doing business in the world, actually sometimes Singapore companies has a very good name because in terms of if they want to IPO in the foreign markets, they actually have a very good name because if you tell the foreigners, right, what do you think of Singapore companies or Singapore business or Singapore individual? You can actually they can actually tell you that they have very, very good image of what Singapore is. So to me, I think Singapore is actually like a brand. So when it's a brand, um, to us it doesn't matter what exactly happens in terms of the cases. We look at ourselves, we look at how we are positioned in the world, how the world sees us, and as well as how do we see in terms of consumer behavior in Singapore. Are we still striving? Are we still highly educated? Are we still employed? Are we still training, giving a lot of grants? I think government also giving a lot of grants for training. Are we upgrading ourselves? So these are the things that make Singapore a spirit that so long that our people are earning in terms of the investment in Singapore, of course, Singapore government did invest quite a lot in terms of foreign markets. So just to retain its value and diversifications for our reserve. So so actually Singapore is highly valued in the sense of people, capabilities, the talents, and the reputations. So because of that, it positions us in a very good way that when there's investment coming in, people will choose to still invest in Singapore, and people will still choose to put their business in Singapore as well. Of course, in property market, like the fundamentals that we have seen that we have seen a en bloc that is happening, I think for especially in the 2018 period where there's starting search of this. But if you see that because Singapore property is a that there's actually in terms of economics is a inelastic curve. So you will usually see the supply and demand when they supply a lot and then there is a ton to supply that probably you might see right now the supply will slowly depreciate because we don't actually the contributions of the land in Singapore is comes with two places. One is actually the en bloc and one is the government land sale, which is called GLS short. So you see that when we are getting less and less projects in terms of land, the number of new launches projects out there will actually goes into the number of in terms of numbers. And then again, the cycle takes place with this. For property developers, what do they actually did is that they would look out for lands, be it whether in Singapore or overseas, because this is their core business. They have to look out for new land so that their cash flow is churning out more money. So instead of leaving their cash falling in positions, they are business people. So they have to leave out the cash flow, something else, new projects, and then probably more of existing units also. So just bear in mind that this is how the Singapore projects that is flowing. That means there's a supply and demand. So right now we are having little or rather than 2000, there isn't much declared land. Uh, Rather, so this is probably the existing supplies will probably last for a few years. And not to forget, I think because of a lot of maybe noises that's happening right now, virus, the work from home disruptions, and then now we back to even the new normal that's coming up. The I think people have forgotten about there's a white paper that was always the top topic, last time, most top topic last time actually. So in 2030, the government interviews and says that I'm going to have a population of 1.9 million. So and they are already our Singapore is kind of like they have plans for many years, and they always make their plans such that it really will fulfilled. And let's say if it tells you 2030 and somehow maybe 2028 they really fulfill that. So this is the history of what our Singapore government is doing. So you can see your surroundings and it can tells you that whether they really building infrastructure, how did they do to our jewel, how do they do our Changi T5, and how do they not tourism in terms of bring cruise to Singapore. So all these things actually makes us feel that okay, Singapore is really doing a lot of things. Even the ports are moving to Tuas. So all these plans that we is all very transparent in the URI master plan. And so these are the plans that we are continuing. But right now, of course, because of the COVID-19, the Singapore government even step in to reassures that our plans will still continue, but timeline may shift because right now, probably because of lack of manpower, or probably because of time is being spent and the effort being spent to fight against COVID-19 right now and to make the immediate urgencies actions towards it. So they actually pause a while for the infrastructures, but these are still going to remain in future. And today, I say that never waste a good crisis. But of course, right now we know what is happening, and to actually able to know what is happening in the future, I'll be sharing with you some of the future trends or what I see in the future real estate, Singapore real estate market. So stay tuned for our next video.